Hey everybody, welcome back. We're going to continue learning Photoshop, and today we are going to learn about how to draw. There's really only one tool you're going to use for drawing, and that is the pen tool. And there's also the freeform pen tool, which if you select that and you draw like this, it will make a vector shape, basically in the shape that you drew. So, this can be helpful maybe if you have an actual pen and tablet, but for the most part, it's not very precise. So, if I'm trying to draw the contour here, you can see I'm missing a lot. It's not easy to do with a mouse. And you end up getting ugly shapes. So what we're going to concentrate on using is the regular pen tool. And we're going to try drawing my friend Christine here. And we're going to do that by tracing, which is a good way to get started when you haven't really drawn with a pen before. So the way the pen works is you draw a line like this, but that's not actually a line. What I just did here is create a point with anchor points. So when I draw my next line, it's going to be affected by where those anchor points are. If I do this one, what's going to end up happening, if I put a point right here, if I pull on that point, it's going to extend outward to the right. And that's because this anchor point is, see how this is making a curve here? So if I hold down Option and I drag, and I want this anchor point to be more like that, then it will not bow out so much when I finish the anchor point there. And that's basically how you draw with the pen tool. Now we're going to get a little bit more precise here and actually start tracing the face. So to get started, let's make a new layer, Command-Shift-N and Control-Shift-N, and we'll call this face. And I'm going to sample a better color of the face. Something more like this is probably appropriate. And so I'm going to just start up here. I'm going to click and then find the next good point right there. And then we don't want this anchor point going in, because if it's going in like it is, then the next point's going to try to go in more. So we need to readjust it, and to do that I'm going to hold down Option to switch to the anchor point conversion tool and drag that out so it lines more with the face here. And I'm going to click on the next point I want to make, drag and hold down, and then I'm going to move this just a little bit so it's more in line with the face. Make another point, curve it out so it matches up with that curve there. I'm just dragging down to do that. And I'm going to line this point again a little bit, curve. Now what I'm just doing here is, after I have made the point and dragged the line out a little bit, I can hold down Option while I'm drawing and then actually adjust this at the same time. So that saves some time. So click, drag to what I want, Option, adjust the point. Click, drag to what I want, Option to adjust the point. One more time for good measure. Click, drag to adjust the point, Option to change the anchor point. And then we can just keep doing this fairly quickly to get a nice contour of the face. Oops, screwed that one up. And this can be kind of awkward at first because it's new and you don't really know what you're doing, and sometimes you will, hold down Option to adjust the point before you're ready, and then you'll have to redo it, and you can just hit Command-Z to redo any of that stuff. But this is a really effective way to draw vector graphics in Photoshop. So we're just going to take that there so you can see how we're finishing off the face. And we don't need this to be all that precise. So there's the contour of Christine's face to start. Now that's obviously not the whole thing. We need to do quite a bit more than this. But I'm going to be using multiple layers. There are lots of different ways to draw, but I'm going to use multiple layers to finish this up. You can see here I've got the basic outline of the body. So now we're going to start adding some hair, but it's kind of hard to draw the hair when I can't see it. So if I want to make it exact, I'm going to need to be able to see it, and I can do that by taking the body parts I've already drawn and just reducing the opacity in the layers palette. And that way I'll be able to see what I'm doing. So we're just going to get some hair color there. We're going to draw one strand of hair to start. Now you can see what I'm doing here is I'm taking this point and I'm this anchor point and I'm swinging it around so it makes an actual point. You can see the angle right there, and that's because I'm going right back up again. Oops, swung it too hard that time. Alright, there we go. There we got our first piece of hair. So you can see this is coming along pretty well. Now, one thing you can do if you want to make the hair a little bit more complex, other than just adding a couple of different tones and shades, you can try something dramatically different, bring up some lighter highlights, and drawing in those. Now, we don't necessarily want to do this because it's not going to look terribly realistic. But what we can do once we're done drawing the actual piece of hair is use opacity to kind of blend it in and give some additional complexity to the picture without losing our vector graphics. So add in a couple of those and you can get some really nice effects. So at this point we're getting close to being done, and I'm just adding some accents to the face. These are just little shadows that you can add very easily to give a little bit more emphasis to parts of the face and really anything else that you're drawing. So the idea is to take a color that's a little bit darker than the natural skin tone you're working with, and then start drawing on the face and then adjusting the opacity so you get it to a point where it's not, you know, too harsh, but you want like little shadows just to add some definition. And now we're basically done. There's a lot more detail we could add and a lot more we could do, but this is just, you know, kind of a basic vector drawing of a person. And so you can see here's the difference. This is what we started with, and this is our drawing. So one last thing we were going to do is just take a look at how to add some interesting gradients to kind of give a tiny bit more detail. And I'm just going to start by doing that with the background. I double-clicked on this blank space over here on the layers palette on the layer I want, which is a pink square. And I'm going to say give it a gradient overlay. And then I'm going to say we want to use the overlay blending mode. Now you can try out different blending modes and see what works the best. And you may also want to use something like a radial gradient, for example. Make it bigger, do a little bit of a reverse there, and then you've got, you know, a nice tone gradation. So now we have a more complex background, before, after, and we can start adding some of those effects to the face as well. If we wanted to take the actual face, for example, and add some gradation to that, we can start using these layer effects. Now sometimes this doesn't always do exactly what you'd hope it would do, but you can play around with it. I mean, like that, for example, it's terrible, but we can multiply or use the overlay effect here and then bring that down quite a bit. So it's just really subtle, just a really subtle change in the face, and we can change the angle of where the light's coming from and so on, so you get a better, you know, kind of look. And you can use multiply if you want to just actually make it darker over in the area because there are shadows over there, and obviously you're going to have to start adding this stuff to your other layers to make it look a lot better. Alternatively, if you can play around with these different options. and see if you can find something that you like to get just a little bit more interesting detail into the face and into the other parts of the drawing. So that is basically drawing, and it's not that hard. All you have to do is really just practice with the pen tool for a while, and you'll get the hang of it, and you'll find that it's actually fairly easy once you have had some practice. Before we call it a day, I just want to mention one more thing. If you are having trouble drawing something more complex like this, what you might want to do is take it a little bit easier and start with like a silhouette. And you can get them to be pretty interesting by finding some interesting photos online and tracing those, or just drawing on your own if you feel comfortable doing that. But you don't have to worry about the level of detail and constantly getting every little thing right with the pen tool. You have a lot more room for error with silhouettes, so that's a really good way to start drawing better in Photoshop. And then once you have those skills and you're comfortable with the pen tool, you can start moving on to the sorts of things that we just tackled here in this lesson. So that's about it for drawing.